Hi everybody, in this little video we'll go through a couple of new classes, the DatePickerDialog, the TimePickerDialog, and the various way we can use the AlertDialog. So these three classes give us a new means to interact with our user. Until now, the only mechanism we had to display what's the equivalent to a .NET message box was the toast. But a toast is a bit boring. It's a small message that appears at the bottom of your screen and that fades away pretty quickly. With DatePickerDialog, sorry, we'll be able to have a calendar showing up in which the user will be able to navigate through the years, the month, the day. With the TimePickerDialog, the user will be able to choose graphically the hour and the minute that he wants to give us as information. He'll even be able to write them himself. With AlertDialog, well, basically, the name says what it does. It's an AlertDialog, so you can display all sorts of message. You can customize them with selection list. You can create something that's pretty much equivalent to a bootstrap model with these different classes. So, well, let me start by showing you what these different dialogue look like, and then we'll go step by step through each and every one of them to see how to declare them, how to instantiate them, and how to use them. So let's start with the DatePickerDialog. Sorry, there's a little spelling mistake here. It's written date time picker dialog, but actually it's date picker dialog. So if I click on my button right here, this is what a date picker dialog looks like. So it shows up a calendar, like I said before, and I can it shows up a calendar with the actual year and the actual date. So today, yeah, we are Wednesday, the 14th of October 2020. So I can navigate throughout the year. Actually, I can go pretty back in time, and also I can go further up in time. And whenever I pick a date, well, there is a method that we're going to override in a few minutes that receive as parameter the year, the day, and the month that is selected by the user. So let's say I picked up here 1st of January 2021, and I press OK. What I did in my code, I received the information from my DatePickerDialog and showed them in a toast, which is right here. So that's for the DatePickerDialog. So we'll go back to it in a few seconds to see how can we actually configure how can we actually, instantiate that class and parameterize and set the class up so we can have something similar to what I've just showed you. If I go with the TimePickerDialog, well, it's pretty similar to the DatePickerDialog, but the goal here is not to let the user specify a date, but to let the user specify a time. So you can choose the 24-hour mode or the AM PM mode. Here I'm in 24-hour mode, and it's 4:29 right now in Montreal. So I can choose the time and then the hour and the minute. I want the user, so he can choose the hour and the minute, and actually if you click here, he can enter them himself. I did the same thing again. You can override one method of this class so that whenever the user presses OK on the dialog, you receive the minutes and the hour, and you can do whatever you want with it. For this simple example, what I did again is display this information in a toast. right here. So 13 and 05. If I go again, let's say 9:15. Okay, you have 9:15 right here. Now let's move on to the alert dialog. So a simple alert dialog has a title, has a message, and you have the possibility to add up to three specific buttons in it. A positive button, a negative button, and a neutral button. You can control whatever text appear in this button, and for each single one of the buttons you can override a method to have a specific reaction to the click on the positive button, on the negative button, or on the neutral button. So if I press yes, well, I have UP right here that's showing up. If I press no, I have so sad that's showing up. And if I press maybe, I have okay, but keep on trying. So I repeat, basic dialog has a method to set the title, has a method to set the message itself, and you're able to add, but you're not obliged to, but you're able to add up to three different buttons, a positive one, a negative one, and a neutral one. Then this is a second variation of the alert dialog in which instead of specifying a message with the set message function of the alert dialog builder class, you can actually pass in an array of string. Actually, there's a couple of overloads of that methods, but the one I choose to demonstrate here was the one receiving in the set item method an array of a string, which are displayed. So here, as soon as you select one of these strings, again in the overloaded, sorry, in the method that you can override to react to the selection of one of this item, the dialog fades out. So here, let's say I click JavaScript, the dialog is going to fade out, but at the same time, it's going to pass the string I choose here to the overridden method that's going to display in a toast the information. So here we go, right here, JavaScript. If I go again, C#. Here is a third version in which instead, well, I still have the same, I'm still using another dialog. I'm still using the same array of string, which contains names of programming languages. But here, I want to persist my data. Before, when I was clicking on one of the strings, the dialog would vanish, would disappear. Here, I can pick one language at the time. Every time I change my selection, the information is sent to the corresponding overridden method, and in that method again I'm using a toast to display the information at the bottom of the screen. The only way to get rid of this dialog is to click somewhere else than on the dialog, which I've just done right here. Fourth implementation of the AlertDialog class is here where I can have a multiple selection. So I can choose Java, which shows up in my toast here, and I can also choose a C#, which also shows up. And you see that the data are persisted right here. I mean, the dialog persists. The only way to get rid of it again is to click anywhere else but on the dialog itself. So here I could, by using if else ifs, check to see which one or which ones of my checkbox are selected to get the complete selection of the user. That was the fourth version, yes. And let me go with the fifth one. So here what I did actually is I create a separate layout file and I use the set view method of the AlertDialog builder class to set that layout file as the view needing to be displayed into my dialog. So here I've created a custom login dialog in which the user can enter his username, let's say Tony, and its password, for example, 123. And if I register a click listener on my login button, well, I could use that button to do what? To log into my application. So these are the different dialogue I want to talk about today. I repeat: the date picker dialog, the time picker dialog, the alert dialog, using various setters to create various effects. So let me start with the date picker dialog, right? Remember, our date picker dialog shows up a calendar in which we can display the current here, the current day, and the current day of the current day of the month and the current day of the week, and we can navigate through time, and whatever the user select, when we press OK, we get that year, day of the year, and day of the week information in an overridden method, and we can do whatever we want to it. Here I'm displaying in a toast. You could put it in a database, for example. So let me go through the code, which is right here. So in my main activity, actually in my layout file, I have this button right here, which is the first button showing in the user interface, the one here. And when I click on it, the show date dialog method is going to be called. So here is that method. So the first step, if you want to use a date picker dialog, is to create a calendar object. Because every activity inherited from app compact activity, and app compact activity has by default an instance of the calendar class, we can use calendar.getInstance to initialize basically our calendar object. Once we have the calendar object, we can use the calendar.get method and the calendar's static attributes to get various information about the actual time frame. So here I'm getting the year as an integer, I'm getting the month, and I'm getting the day of the month. All these information are needed to initialize what's called a date picker dialog. So my date picker dialog takes as input for its constructor the context of the application. It takes the context of the application. It takes the year, it takes the context of the application, like I said, right here. It takes on date set listener, which is the interface that you have to implement to be able to override the undate set method. The undate set method is the method that is called whenever you click the OK button right here. If I press 24 and I press OK, once I press OK, this method right here is the one that's being called, and it's the one that's displaying my date in the toast. Let me do it again. So here 15, okay, you see what's showing up here, 2020 9/15. Well, here's my 2020, here's my 9th month, and here's my 15. So you see that I received the year, the month, and the day of the month from the calendar that's displayed in the dialog. But when I construct this object. I have to pass again the context. I have to implement this interface up to here, overriding the right method and coding my reaction to the event. And also can pass the actual day, the actual year, sorry, the actual month, and the actual day of the month, which are the information that I gathered right here. Once that's done, um, sorry, um, we use the create method to instantiate our date picker dialog, and then we use the show method to display the dialog itself. So when I do this, the show method, sorry, what enables me to display this calendar right here. So that's it for the date picker dialog. If we move on to the time picker dialog, again, I have a dialog here in which I can either work in analogous mode or in digital mode. I can enter the information myself. I have the current time, and whenever I press OK again, I'm sent to an overridden method that I have access to. Why? Because I implemented a specific interface. So again, let's look at my my XML layout. We're talking about this layout element here, this button, which correspond to the second button right here. So when I'm going to click on that button, I'm going to be sent to the show time dialog, which is in my main activity, which is right here, show time dialog. So again, I need an instance of my calendar, and with my calendar object, I can retrieve the actual hours of the day, minutes of the day, and even seconds of the day, even though the seconds are not displayed in the time picker dialog. I create my time picker dialog, passing in the context of the application on top of the context, passing in the context of the application, passing it a new interface that I need to implement to override the onTimeSet method, which again receives the hour of the day, the minute of the day, and as you can see, no second. These are the information that I use within that method to create the toast that shows, and let me do it again, that shows right here. If I pick, let's say, 23 and 30, when I press OK, whatever shows here, 23 and 30, here's my 23 and here's my 30. On top of the context and the interface that we implement to be able to override the onTimeSet method, we have to pass the actual hour of the day, the actual minute of the day, and here we have a Boolean variable that can be true or false. If it's true, it means that you want to work in a 24-hour mode. If it's false, well, you don't want to work in 24-hour mode. You want to work in AM and PM. And just like with the date picker dialog, we need to create the dialog and to show the dialog for it to appear on screen. Let's move on to the next one, the alert dialog. Basically, the first variation of the alert dialog. For the alert dialog, we work a bit differently than with the date picker dialog and with the time picker dialog. The alert dialog needs to be created from an alert builder object. So once we create the alert builder object, that alert builder object has different setters that enables us to set the title, to set the message, and to set the positive, negative, and neutral buttons if we need to. Each of these buttons implementing a specific interface and overriding a specific method that enables us to react to the click on each and every one of those buttons. So let's see that first variation. Again, let me go in my layout. We're right here with this button here, and we will execute the show alert dialog 1. So if I go in my activity, show alert dialog 1, so here's my alert dialog builder that I'm gonna call ADB for alert dialog builder. And how do we instantiate it? It's by passing the context to its constructor. Once this object is created, once the alert dialog builder is created, I can use all these different setters to configure the way I want to build the alert dialog that's going to be shown on screen. So I'm using here the set title, which controls the titles of my dialog. I'm using the set message, which controls the message that's going to be showing within the dialog. Let me show you again. So you see here my first dialog. Do you like Android development? And this is the message. Now, if I want to add positive, negative, and neutral buttons, I don't have to. I can if I want to, and I can add any combination of them. I can add yes and maybe, or only yes, or no and yes, or no and maybe. It's up to you, really. So you do your alert dialog builder object dot set positive. You provide the string, that's the message that should display on the button itself, and you implement an interface and override its method. And within that method, well, you code whatever reaction you want to have to a click on the positive button. And it's exactly the same thing for the negative button that we're seeing here. It's exactly the same thing for the neutral button that we have here. Once your alert dialog builder is configured with a title, a message, and positive, neutral, and negative button if you need them, you need to use the alert dialog builder create method to instantiate an alert dialog object, and then you show the alert dialog object. And this is what we have here. So if I press yes, I'm gonna get UP here. If I press no, I'm gonna get sad. And if I press the neutral button, the maybe button, I'm gonna get okay, but keep on trying. So let's press, sorry, this is not what I wanted. So let's press the maybe, and I see here okay, but keep on trying. So let's move on to the next one, the alert dialog version 2. It's still a dialog, so I still have a title, but here I don't have a message anymore. I have a selection list. I could add positive, negative, and neutral button, but I didn't deem it necessary here for my example. So let's go into the layout, and we're right here. Show alert dialog 2. So if I go and look at my show alert dialog 2, I have the string here that contains the selection of strings I want to display in my dialog. I use the dialog builder again and instantiate it with the context of my application. I set my title, and then instead of doing the using the set message setter of the alert dialog builder object, I'm using the set items setter, passing in the array of strings. And again, this function is overloaded. I can pass in an array list, I can pass it in a string, I can pass in a cursor, I can pass in an array adapter. I just choose one version here for one overload here for my demonstration. Next, we implement the interface that enables us to override the onClick method. That will be called to let us react to whichever text is selected in our list here. The integer that's returned correspond to the position of the integer that of the element in our list that has been clicked. So this is a good alternative to a list view where you only have sample strings to display, instead of having a list view with an array adapter using a sample list item one layout file, for example. So yeah, so let's try it. So if I press Java, I have Java showing. If I go again, if I press C++, I have C++ showing. So the big default of this way of using the AlertDialog class is that once I select an item, well, my AlertDialog vanishes. What happened if I had made a mistake? Just like with the previous version, we have to use our AlertDialog builder to initialize the AlertDialog object that we need to show. Let's move on to the next one again, which is version 3, which is another dialog, but with a sample selection. So with a list, the same array list, sorry, the same array of string containing the same strings, but now each of them is preceded by a radio button. And if you notice here, once I change my selection, the dialog doesn't vanish, right? So it persists my dialog, my alert dialog, until I click somewhere outside the dialog. So again, in my layout, we're right here, show alert dialog 3. And in the main activity, we're right here. So the same string, the same alert dialog builder, the same title, but instead of having a set items, I have a set single choice item, which receives my array of strings. Here, I can pass an integer that specifies which of the item in the list should be my default selection, basically. So if I go here, you see that Java is selected by default because I have 0 here. If I write 3 and I launch my application again, sorry, it's compiling, it's still compiling. So it's gonna relaunch, it won't be too long. So if I press 3, now you see that it's C++, that's my default selection. But when I switch, well, it switches. So the integer here points to the item that should be selected by default when the dialog shows up. Again, we override the interface that enables us, we implement the interface that enables us to override the onClick method, in which we code our reaction to a new selection. It is an alert dialog, so we need to call the create method on the alert dialog builder and then show the alert dialog. And we're almost done. So let's look at our next variation right here, version 4. So now I can have not only can I have a multiple selection, but I can also specify multiple default items to be selected. And I'll show you how to do that in a few seconds. The list still persists. So where are we? We're right here in our layout with the show dialog, the show alert dialog 4. And in my activity, it's right here. So here's my string of programming languages. Here's my array of strings, array of programming languages. Here's my alert dialog builder. And here's the set multiple choice item method instead of the set single choice item instead of the set items. So you see the progression right here. So this method takes as parameters, it takes either an array of strings, an array list, an array adapter, a cursor. Like I said, there's many overloads. It takes here an array of Boolean. Each Boolean, if it's true or false, tells you if the corresponding item in the array of string right here should be selected by default or not. So if you pass null, well, none of them are selected by default, which is what I did in my example. And then I implement the red interface to be able to override the onClick method and to react to the selection. So the integer here gives me enables me to retrieve the item that was selected, and then I see if it's checked or not. Again, I need to create my alert dialog from my alert dialog builder, and I can here show the dialog. And the last but not least of them, of the variation of the alert dialog, is the fifth one right here, where I actually display in my dialog, in my alert dialog, a custom layout. How is this done? Well, first, if I go into my res folder here in layout, I've created a custom layout file that I called Dialog Layout right here. So this is my, Dialog Layout. Yeah, here is my main activity layout. Here is my dialog layout. So my dialog layout is a relative layout in which I have a linear layout vertical and two edit text. One to enter the username, the other one to enter the password, basically. They both have IDs because I would want to get the text within these edit text to verify the login information on my database. And if the login is successful, then I would redirect my user to the right activity, right? So I also have a button for which I could register to its click event, which I haven't done in this example. So this is my custom layout file. A bit like we need to create a custom layout file when we want our custom array adapter to display information in a specific manner in each line of a list view. But this is a bit simpler. We have less step here. So I have my custom layout that's called Dialog Layout. And then in my activity right here in Show Alert Dialog 5, I create my alert dialog builder, passing the context. I set the title of the dialog to be, and I use the set view method. And I'm pointing here to what? To my custom XML layout file, the one we just described right here. I could have added positive, negative, and neutral button. Actually, I could have done that for all the dialog we've talked about, except from the DatePickerDialog and the TimePickerDialog. I create my AlertDialog from the AlertDialog builder and I show it. So, well, here we go. This is what we have. Now, you notice if I click, there's nothing happening. Why? Because I haven't registered to the click event of this button. If I want to get rid of this form right here, because that's what we've built, I can just click anywhere and I'm done. So these are three sample class: DatePickerDialog, TimePickerDialog, and AlertDialog. And with these class and the toast class, well, we have yet another way or other ways of interacting with our user, either to get information from them or to display information to them. So thank you. See you soon.